Good stuff. So yeah, Brennen Forster, good friend of mine, on the show today. Very excited. Brennen is currently a financial representative at Forrest Hills Financial Group. He was a Division I baseball player for a couple of years at New York Institute of Technology, and is currently the runner, the owner, the CEO, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, of Life After Sports Group here in New York City, where some incredible people meet up a couple times a year to chat about their lives, unfortunately, after sports. Brennen, thanks for hanging out today, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
No, dude, pleasure's all mine. I love the stuff you do. We've connected on a few different levels. So the first question I always want to ask people is, where does your love of sports come from?
Um, I don't know. I think it just starts with natural talent. Growing up, I was
Hmm.
good at sports that incorporated a ball and some rules, and and you kind of just go from there. I played all sports growing up, from soccer, skiing, um, baseball, basketball, tennis, swimming. So I was very well. I think I even did gymnastics.
Wow.
I was very well rounded as a kid, and then eventually, you start realizing, where you feel like the most connection. For me,
Hmm.
was baseball.
Hmm. Yeah, baseball is my favorite sport, hands down. More as like an entity. I mean, I will say watching a football game is probably more exciting
Definitely.
over that length of time. But baseball it's my favorite. I've grew up. It was the first sport I learned how to play. It was the first sport I played competitively. It was the only sport I was actually good at. So that, again, talent actually led into that a little bit, which I'm very grateful for. So I guess what is it about baseball that I guess just really called to you, and you were able to answer that call?
Um, I guess it started with where you grow up. I grew up in a very small town in Queens, and every single person I knew growing up, we played baseball and basketball in the streets,
Hmm.
like with a stick and a tennis ball. And then eventually that led into Little League, and I was good, and I was asked to be on the travel team. This was like age 7, 8 years
Yep.
old.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And our core group of like 11 or 12 guys, I think 10 of the 12 of us went on and played college and professional baseball. So we were like a really good group. I was with this travel team from probably 7 or 8 years old to 11. And then I moved to Long Island, and, we got older and kind of split apart.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but that's really the foundation of like my talent. Was I was part of a very competitive league. I don't know if you heard of the Little League World Series.
I've watched it once or twice every August for the last
So
15
so
years.
I
Yeah.
was I was one of those teams that was going for that, but
Hmm.
we fell a little bit short, but we
Oh,
were that good,
yeah.
where we made a run.
Oh.
So I grew up. I mean, in the winter I skied, in the fall I played basketball, but baseball was, always the sport where, like, you know, mom, dad, I want to go pro. So what do I
Hmm.
have to do?
I love it.
Yeah. So I always felt that like it was going to be what I wanted it to be for a career. Grew up watching guys like Roger Clemens, Andy Pettit, El Duque, Mariano Rivera, Jeter.
All
So the
right. All
whole,
right. I'm gonna have to stop you there for a second. So you grew up in Queens, but you only named Yankees. Why are
I
you
was
doing
a
that to
big,
me, man? Why are you doing
I,
that
I
to
was,
me?
I was a kid in the late '90s.
Yeah.
So
That's actually a pretty good excuse. I'll give you that. There you go.
in the late '90s, the Yankees won like 3 World Series in a row. That's just my team. That's my family's
Yeah.
team. We're all kind of Yankee fans, and I just fell in love with the pinstripes. I don't know.
I was
Um,
really hoping you were gonna be a Mets fan. I mean, you grew up in Queens. That's
yeah, it's
I
it's
get it.
it's split.
Believe me, if I didn't
The
have to
Mets,
be a Mets
yeah.
fan, I would not be a Mets fan. I will be upfront and honest about that. I won't make my kids do that. I probably will, but I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to. But
To tell you the truth, I couldn't even name you like 5 starters on the Mets back then. Like, I just watched the Yankees,
I get that.
and I love that rivalry with Pedro
Hmm.
and Don Zimmer and Joe Torre, and like I was really into the AL East, and what was going on.
Hmm.
So my love for watching those guys and then trying to like go out the next day and like copy Andy Pettit's motion
Hmm.
was kind of like what I did. for a while.
I love it.
And
Yeah, I think all kids definitely at some point. I mean, I used to play baseball games by myself, and it would be the bottom of the eighth inning or bottom of the ninth inning. I'd be pitching, I'd be catching, I'd be playing outfield and hitting the ball. I think I always made the defensive save. I never hit the game-winning home run. I always made the game-winning catch for whatever reason. 7-year-old
yeah,
Mike, that's what he was into. But it worked out. It was fun. I love it. I still love baseball to this day. Can't wait. I think we're like a month away from pitchers and catchers as of
yes,
recording, which I'm very excited about. So once football's over, we can roll right into speculation season in baseball. And then, I don't know, the Mets will
exactly.
probably tank again as they've been, but it is what it is. Give me some fun. Give me another Cy Young for Jacob DeGrom, and I think I'll call it a successful year. But
Right.
that's awesome, man. So of that team that you said you played on, 10 people went to play pro or college. That
I
is
think
an
so. Yeah.
incredible number. Shoot, even if it's 8, that's still
Yeah. No,
incredible.
we were good back then, and everyone just every one of us had the same dream.
Hmm.
So I mean, we played in the streets, we played in the schoolyard, and we played sewer to sewer ball, and then
Hmm. Tell me
two
about
free.
sewer to sewer ball a little bit. I know I didn't grow up in a city. I grew up in a
Yeah,
country
it's a
essentially.
city
So
thing. So
yeah.
there's sewers in the middle of the streets between the houses,
Hmm.
and like one sewer would be home plate, and the sewer down a little would be second base, and then the tree would be first base, and then the
Ah.
car would be third base,
Hmm.
and we were just you were just smacking handballs all over the place.
That's funny.
And then we once you go on a real field, and we had practice also, but we're all the same with the 10 kids that I hung out with. We hung out all the time, whether we were at practice or not at practice, and we would just roll onto a baseball field, put our cleats on, and it would be the same thing.
Sewer
And
to sewer, baby. I love it. That's awesome.
yeah, so it didn't matter if it was a tennis ball or handball, and then they put a baseball in our hands.
Hmm.
We were all naturals. We were all good.
That is
Um,
cool.
yeah, way above like our age group.
Yeah,
Um,
clearly. I
so
mean, there was something there. I don't know what it was in Queens that year, but something was going on, and it clearly worked out to the
it's just
benefit.
yeah, there's not much there. It was like it's Howard Beach is a small Italian area.
Hmm.
The girls danced and the boys played baseball. That's just the way it was.
I love it.
There was nothing more to it. Um, what was different about me is I was a very competitive skier, and none of the kids went skiing in the winter, so that
Hmm.
was a little different. I was a really good skier. That was probably my best sport, but I didn't have that connection I had with baseball.
Hmm. What kind of
Olympics was, yeah, was.
Olympics
I
was
know,
it?
I know
Wasn't in
you,
your.
I know you interview all these Olympic guys and girls. It wasn't my calling. You
Uh-huh.
just know it. You just know when you're an athlete. So I was ranked. I was racing. I was going through the gates. Um, but it was something about the cold and the one suits, and I guess I like the summer and the baseball, and I don't know, but it's good because I still ski, I still
Hmm.
play baseball, so not much has changed.
There you go, buddy. You can still enjoy all of it. I love that. And
Yeah,
yeah, I remember you telling me you were a competitive skier, but I don't think you ever made it to the point where you said you were ranked. And
yeah, it goes by
were
age group.
okay.
Yeah, so I was on a race team at my mountain, Wyndham in the Catskills,
Hmm.
and it was interesting because the team raced or practiced Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon.
Hmm.
I played basketball, and my parents took me up on Saturdays, and we left Sundays. So I did Saturday mornings with the race team. So I
Hmm.
trained a quarter of the time that the other kids were training. And under the coach's son, I was the second best racer.
Wow.
So I was like really good at that sport too,
Hmm.
barely practicing. And they would put us in these, the team would sign up for against like other mountains, and I guess you would compete.
Hmm.
And I liked the sport because it was very objective. It was all about your time.
Hmm.
So baseball is very subjective.
Yeah.
Depending on the day of the week, you can be the worst or best player. But racing was really like who's the fastest guy. So I kind of like that aspect that you put your helmet and goggles on and no one sees you,
Uh-huh.
and I was a little bit fearless. And you get ranked in your age group, so I was like getting ranked amongst the other 9 or 10-year-olds in the country, and I
Hmm.
was like second or third at one point.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And then the
That's
guy above
impressive.
me was the coach's son,
Uh-huh.
who
Uh-huh.
skied way more than me. He ended up Division I skiing at Vermont. so he was good too.
All right. Yeah, something of you when you were young, man, you were just around some athletes. That is no such thing as coincidence. There's no such
Yeah.
thing as coincidence in my mind. I think that's awesome, though. Well, congratulations on all of that. I knew you were a skier, as I said, but didn't know. And then your partner with the Life After Sport group, if I'm not mistaken, he's a huge swimmer, right?
Yeah. Shout out to
Yeah.
Frank.
Yeah. Shout out Frank. Him and I had a great conversation the last time you had an event in the city. Yeah, him and I were going back and forth. He knows some of the people that I've met. Just like it's
Really?
crazy how this world works sometimes, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. He swam at Stony Brook, which is
Hmm.
Division 1. And I guess that's how we connected in the beginning as athletes.
Hmm.
It's so easy to connect when you played sports at the same level or at the same interest.
Hmm.
So it doesn't really matter the sport, I don't think. But yeah, he was a swimmer. I don't know much about competitive swimming, but just the fact that he was a competitive athlete and we were
Hmm.
able to kind of connect on that when we
Yeah.
first met.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Obviously, as I said before, Division 1 baseball player, New York Institute of Technology, Division 1, man. That is crazy. I mean, you're what, one of those point whatever percent of people that made it that far. I mean, what was and it probably, I mean, because you came up in the sport, I guess I'll ask it, but like what was the difference between, okay, playing very competitively in high school, AAU and all of that, and then actually making the jump to, one of the top 4 or 5 most competitive leagues you could probably say around the world potentially, right? Like if you put up one of the best Division 1 baseball teams against one of the better teams in some of these other world leagues, maybe not Korea, Japan or Korea, but many of the other leagues around the world, I mean, that D1 team's going to have a
Yeah.
pretty legitimate shot. So what was that like? And when did that kind of set in that, hey, I knew I was good, but man, I'm pretty darn good at this thing.
To tell you the truth, I'll explain the jump, but I never really felt like I arrived because I
Mm-hmm.
always had kind of this one goal
Uh-huh.
of big leagues. That was it. And so um, my attitude was D1 or nothing. If I can't make a Division 1 team, I'm not good enough to
Mm-hmm.
go on anyway. So I had to sign Division 1, even though I got some other looks. Um, it was the only option I was kind of giving myself, talking through with your parents and everything as well and your coaches. That was the route I was going. Signed with New York Tech. Biggest jump. Developmentally, I was a late bloomer. I was a tall, skinny kid coming out of high school. Didn't really have a set position. I had a good swing. I was a good first baseman, but I also was a pitcher. And I always fought that thing that pitchers don't hit because I had a really good swing.
Mm-hmm.
So I hit and I pitched. And in college, they don't let you do both.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was then the conversation was what's going to give me the best chance of getting scouted and getting signed, after these 4 years. So if I could go back, I would probably do it differently, but I chose pitching.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they decided, the coaches, that I should redshirt the year and put on
Okay.
some weight. So that year, I got into, working out and eating. I put on like 15, 20 pounds. Then I was a redshirt freshman. So I had a whole year to kind of watch a season and train and do all the workouts. And I just didn't play in the games. And it kept me eligible for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started off real slow. I started in the bullpen, fill roles. And I always wanted to be a starter. Eventually, I did work my way into the starting rotation. But really, where I was best, looking back on it and being honest with myself now, maybe not then, is I was a good long reliever.
Mm-hmm.
So if a pitcher can't get out of the first 3 or 4 innings, I can pitch as long as a starter can. But I
Mm-hmm.
always seemed to do better when I didn't know the night before that I was pitching.
Ah, all right. Yeah, kind of
And
spice
and I
yourself
didn't
up a little bit. Yeah.
I didn't throw hard enough to be a closer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so long reliever is where I spent most of my college career. Guy can't get out of the first inning. He walks 3 guys. Boom, I'm up.
Mm-hmm.
By the time it's the fifth, sixth inning, I'm taking my cleats off.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of
In
nice.
most cases, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my role for the most of college. My senior year, I did start, but that's where I kind of sat, and yeah, I kind of I had my ups and downs. It's, just like
Hmm.
any other athlete, it's a roller coaster ride. I
As
had some good moments, bad moments, and everything in between.
and you wouldn't be the same person if you didn't have all those moments, right? So we're very
Yeah.
grateful for all of them. What would you say is the biggest factor in that you pitched better when you didn't quite know if you were going to pitch? Would you contribute that to anything, or was it just, hey, like, get up and do it, not have to think about it, anything along those lines?
I don't know if this is a factor, but I know I always got nervous.
Okay.
Um, Good nerves. I
Mm-hmm.
perform better. You perform better when you're nervous. But I had a lot of, I don't know how to say it. I guess you can call it like superstitions and like
Well, you're a
just
baseball
things
player. Of course, you have superstitions.
things would keep building up. I would keep, mentally I would get a little bit blocked when I put so much pressure on myself. And I put a lot of pressure on myself because I really wanted to do this as a career. So I treated it more like that than a game. And if I didn't put that much pressure on myself, I probably would have been better for it.
Hmm.
But you're an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, and you don't have the wisdom yet to know these things. So it's more of a personality, and my personality was to kind of put a lot of pressure on myself. And when I was on, I was on.
Hmm.
But when I was off, I couldn't pull it together as a starter.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the way it went for me. It was like you never knew what you were getting from me, and I had all the tools to be really good, and I would show it in flashes. But it wasn't consistent enough. And being a professional starter is all about consistency. You know what you're getting from these guys every fifth day.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where I happened to settle into this long reliever role where I had a really good arm. I had 3 or 4 pitches. I can control a game, but something about just like not really knowing or caring, about the beginning of the game and just kind of being loose helped me.
Hmm.
I didn't necessarily like the role, um, but that was my role.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean it's not funny, it's not ironic. I don't know the exact word I want to use, but I mean, as you said, back when you were playing, you weren't allowed to pitch and hit. Well, now we see some people in the MLB that are pretty darn good at it. Some prospects coming up
Yeah, the
that's,
game's
you know,
changing. The game's
Shohei
changing.
Ohtani, Brennan McKay over there for the Rays. I mean, so there's a couple names, and obviously they're very much the outlier, but it's still pretty cool to watch. And then again, going back to the Tampa Bay Rays, the opener, not technically starting the game, essentially in that, you're essentially the starter, but in that long reliever role. It
Yeah,
sounds like you would have been much better suited maybe 3 or 4 years in the future, and things
the
could have been a
game's
little
the game's
different.
changing. The game's changing, man. And pitchers are starting to hit.
Hmm.
Um, they're getting to the point now where pitchers are getting to the big leagues and they played AL rules their whole life or the
Hmm.
DH, and they're expected to get a hit in the World Series because they're playing a National League team,
Yeah.
and they can do it, but they didn't get their reps in. And if you watch a guy like Bartolo Colon,
Oh,
you're a big Met fan.
thank you.
So he came to the Mets, and in the beginning, he was like this funny fat guy swinging and his helmet coming off. But if you remember, a year down the road, he knocked one out of the park and he started hitting the ball
Hmm.
because he was getting his reps, but his whole career was in the American League.
Hmm.
So anyone can get the timing down because they're all athletes,
Hmm.
but you can't expect a pitcher to just go up there and face a major league
Yeah.
pitcher when they didn't. They in the minor leagues, it's all American League rules.
Uh-huh.
So in the minor leagues, no pitchers are hitting, and in most college programs, no pitchers are hitting. So the kids aren't allowed to swing the bats after high school, and sometimes in certain high school programs, they can't hit,
Hmm.
and you lose it. So I always had a good swing, and as soon as my career ended and I started playing recreationally, I went back to hitting,
Hmm.
and my swing was still there.
Yeah.
It's a net. So I don't know. I don't know why it's like that, but I think it's changing for the better. Pitching, definitely, there's more of a bullpen role,
Hmm.
and pitchers are learning to be athletes again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm happy about it. I mean, the one knock that you always hear on baseball is, they're not athletic enough. Again, just pointing to the Bartolo Colons. I don't know. I don't want to disparage anyone's name. I mean, Carlos Santana, like, you wouldn't look at him and say, he's a world-class athlete. You and I both know he is because I've watched him on the Indians and then on the Phillies for that one year, and now he's back with the Indians. He's incredible. But the public perception is always like you don't really have to be an athlete. Well, I don't know. I disagree. Mike Trout would disagree most likely. There's a lot of guys out there that would, and just because you're not fit like LeBron James doesn't quite mean you're not an athlete. Many of those guys can do a lot of things. I mean, I've watched Bartolo Colon's workouts. He's
Yeah.
insane. That man is an animal. But it is fun to watch, and I do love baseball, and I appreciate you chatting a little baseball with me today, Brennan. I do appreciate
Yes.
it.
Speaking Mets, speaking of athletes that are pitchers, you're going to enjoy watching Marcus Stroman.
Yes.
Shout out to a Long Island native.
Yeah. There you go.
He was in my recruiting class.
No way.
So I played against him a couple of times in high school.
Very cool.
Two Long Island guys. Steven Matz was in my recruiting class too.
Yep.
So Stroman and Matz are finally teammates after all these
Mm-hmm.
years.
Yep.
They knew each other from back in the day, and he was a shortstop. He was a two-way guy too, and he won a Gold Glove, I believe, already on the mounds. So Stroman won a Gold Glove.
Yeah.
So he's an athlete. He's an athlete that went to the mounds instead of a pitcher being a pitcher. So that's an example of, I think, where the league's moving. Just like in NFL, it's becoming a lateral sport as a QB. The QBs are becoming runners. And I think that's where kind of the new wave is going, because kids are starting their workouts and things earlier in life, and everyone's just a better athlete.
Absolutely. 100%. I totally agree. And I'm very excited for it, just to continue to watch the sport, all the sports evolve, as you said. I mean, quarterbacks, obviously you can point to Lamar Jackson, but even, I don't know, Patrick Mahomes or Daniel Jones, just to keep it New York City based. I mean, they're not the fleetest of foot, but they're mobile, right? They can move around and they can do enough that it puts pressure on defenses, which is always fun. And, all right, but back to you. Enough about just sports in general, and I can always talk to you about that at all times. But so you played baseball in college. Did you get drafted?
No. After college,
Yeah.
so I had that redshirt year. So I didn't get drafted. I didn't throw hard enough.
Okay.
You have to, it's a velocity game, and I was like upper 80s. I would touch 90, 91 on a good day. But I wasn't a velocity guy. I never was. Don't know how to do it. Otherwise, I would do it. And
if that's all it took, man, that's all it took. A lot of people would be baseball players.
I was competitive. I kept the ball in the park, and I liked to pitch to contact. And since I couldn't throw the ball past people, I wanted to make efficient outs, and I would try to get guys to swing and keep the ball on the grounds and track short and quick innings. So that was my style. So I had this fifth year, and I graduated on time. So I had to be a student to do my fourth year of baseball. So I started my MBA program, business graduate program. And in that fifth year of school, that graduate year, I finished my fourth year of baseball. And then I went to a couple independent professional tryouts. And my second or third one, I signed for a league down in the Southwest.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And how long were you hanging out down there?
So I signed that summer. It's the Pecos League, in case you want to look it up. It's a independent league. It's professional, but it's not affiliated with MLB. Scouts are there, though. They're looking to pick up guys, and it was a good platform for me to continue my career. So I got signed for that next summer. So I trained that whole summer. Signed my contract, and literally woke up early, trained, ate, gave baseball lessons, ate, trained, went to sleep. Like I did it like 6 days a week. By Sunday, I was exhausted, and that was like a rest day. I found a way to work out for free. A facility let me give baseball lessons, and if I gave baseball lessons, I was able to use their facilities to train. And I didn't have any money. Getting out of college and going through the minor league route wasn't going to put any money in my pocket, so I had to be creative. So I did that for a year. I did that through the whole summer and winter, and put on like another 20 pounds. I was in good shape. I was strong. Went in. Another roller coaster, another big leap, independent ball from Division I baseball. Started off slow, made the team. They asked me to assistant coach for a while because they didn't want to cut me. They wanted me to hang around, but there just wasn't any room in the
Mhm.
rotation. Eventually, I got my chance. Some good outings, some bad
Mhm.
outings,
Mhm.
and I got traded a little bit, but I lasted the whole summer. There's a lot of turnover in those leagues.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I never got released, which was good. And I had a pitching coach at the time who lived in North Carolina. Called him up after my season and told him I think I'm done. And while I was playing that summer, he became an area scout for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and he said that he can get me into a better league for that next summer, and I should keep playing. So I was in New Mexico, took the plane from New Mexico to New York, unpacked, repacked, and literally took my car and drove 550 miles to North Carolina
Mhm.
and found like an apartment, a job, all in the same day
Wow.
because I had nowhere to sleep,
Mhm.
and it was crazy. And I moved to North Carolina basically for that entire winter, trained with him. And the league I was going into was in Michigan. It was a smaller league. It was like a 4-team round robin league in one stadium.
Mhm.
And it was going to be a better place to get noticed because there's less guys.
Mhm.
So March, drove from North Carolina back to New York, unpacked, repacked, and then drove out to Michigan, another
Mhm.
550 miles.
Oh.
And I had a little bit of a bicep strain. I threw a lot that winter. It was a little bit windy and cold, didn't come out with my best stuff. I made it through the third round of tryouts. 1,000 kids showed up and they're taking like 70.
Mhm.
Made it through the third and final round of tryouts. Ended up getting released. I pitched really good actually. Through and it, I'm a guy that needs some innings for my velocity to come up.
Mhm.
I was throwing 87. They released me. I was striking guys out, and I asked why, and they said, we're really looking for 88 and up. So because of 1 mile per hour in the spring training game,
Oof.
I got released, and that was a bad moment for me. That was a
Yeah.
tough moment. Um, tears and everything. Being
Mhm.
super transparent, like it hurt.
Yeah. This is
Um,
literally your entire dream, as you've been telling me this whole time, was to play in the MLB,
yeah,
right? To
I
play
mean,
professionally.
I was on a set track at this point to have one more good summer and get signs.
Mhm.
So it hurt. My only real option at the time was to go back to New Mexico. Didn't want to do that. Wanted to keep moving up. And nothing else was, really knocking on my door. So I drove back home, the longest car ride of my life.
Oh, goodness.
Um, mental pain as an athlete when it didn't hit you yet, but it hit you
Mhm.
that your career is really over, just like that. Really took that summer off. Mentally, I wasn't in a space to really. I if there's ever such thing that I can feel for depression, this was the summer.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
wasn't like clinically diagnosed, but
But I can
I
only
had
imagine.
I had trouble seeing anyone. I didn't want to talk about baseball. I didn't know what to say. I had no money. I felt like a little bit of a disappointment. Um, and then so that was May, June, July, August. That summer was a wash, basically.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's
Yeah,
oof. Looking back, you'd never let 3 months go by like that. But in the
it's
moment, I could
it's
only
all
imagine.
it's all necessary.
It's
It's
all
all
relative.
necessary.
That
Yeah,
absolutely all necessary.
I had to take that time to one, get over what was going on, and two, figure out what's next for me.
Mhm.
No pun intended. What's
Yeah.
next? And I had an interesting conversation with my father. It was like August at the time. I asked him what I should be doing. Before August, I was not open to advice. I wasn't suicidal, but people wondered. That's how bad of a
Mhm.
shape I was in.
Whoa. All right.
Definitely wasn't suicidal. I was just in a real bad funk.
Mhm. Mhm.
You don't, it's scary when I was 24, 25 at the time. It's scary when you don't know what you're going to do with your life.
Absolutely.
And I wasn't, the type of guy that wants to go into coaching. So my dad suggested I get like just a job to get started, like, a regular 9 to 5,
Hmm.
just to get, have some responsibility again to do something. And it wasn't a bad idea. When I was in North Carolina, I worked at a New Balance store.
Cool.
It helped me
Hmm.
pay rent, and I was around, sneakers and sports and stuff. It was whatever.
Could be
I was
worse.
I was good at it. I met a lot of people, and there's a New Balance store on Long Island, and decided that would be the easiest, and most comfortable thing for me to do. So I got hired. Like literally, I walked in a New Balance store, and I told him, where I worked, and he called the guy. The guy said, "You're crazy if you don't hire him." And the manager said, "When do you want to start?" And I said, "I could start today." It was like that.
Really need
I
to
was
get
like,
out of the house,
yeah, I
please.
was like, yeah, I was like, my calendar is empty. Um, and I like kind of, all he had to do was show me the stock room, and I knew what I was doing there.
Yeah.
All the systems are the same at every New Balance store,
Hmm.
so I could just kind of pick up where I left off. And I started working. A few weeks went by, and I was miserable, like absolutely miserable. And I went back to my dad, who, someone I trust when I'm I guess, in a dark place like I
Hmm.
was.
Yeah.
And I said, "This isn't really working. I don't feel any better doing this." And he said, "Why don't you go back to school? And when you're in a fog, you're not thinking clearly."
Hmm.
But that was like the greatest thing he ever said to me. I spoke to my best friend from high school and my brother, a couple other people I trust, and we decided that that was a good move, to finish my MBA, because I did one of 2 years,
Oh, okay. There you go.
right? Because of the redshirt year.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I had 2 semesters, and I have an MBA degree. Um, so I enrolled back at New York Tech. I didn't have to take any test. I filled out like one piece of paper. They already had all my records.
Hmm.
And so September comes around, and I'm back in school like a regular student,
Hmm.
and working.
Was there with going back specifically to the college that you played baseball at for pretty much 5 years with the red shirt? Was there any like, and not to make light of it, but like any like PTSD or any like like nostalgia memories coming up and being like, damn, I was only here a couple years ago doing
Um,
playing baseball, the thing I love.
you know what? I didn't have enough fun. I took it too seriously back then.
Okay, that makes
So
sense. Yeah.
so it was always a job.
Hmm.
Um, I never really stopped playing. I still play
Hmm.
recreationally. There were things I'll miss, and there were things I didn't miss. So there's
Hmm.
like a balance to it.
Yeah.
Definitely nothing crazy. I would drive past the field when it was empty once in a while, and just kind of like sit in my favorite spot on a hill,
Hmm.
and just kind of, kick it like anyone would. And but nothing crazy. I felt really comfortable there on that campus.
Uh-huh.
I knew my way around. So it felt a little weird to get back in school and start getting assignments. I never thought I was going to be writing another essay, but I was always a good student, and it came easy to me. So I just kind of got back in the groove. I had some responsibility, and I started feeling better about myself, because now you can have a conversation with someone, and you can say, "I'm in grad school and I'm working," instead of, "I just got released from baseball and I have no idea what I'm doing next."
Hmm.
So what school allowed me to do is it gave me a window to figure out what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
It was an excuse almost, a buying time.
And
And
sometimes
that's
you need that
that's how
though.
I saw it. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
proactive way to buy myself more time.
And it
That's how I
worked.
saw our school.
It worked out pretty darn well. So I mean,
Yeah.
hey, I mean, I wish you could have made it. That would have been incredible. I'm sure you do too. But I think what you're doing now is pretty
No,
cool.
I mean, it
Um,
all works out.
exactly,
It works out the way it's supposed to.
100%.
When in November, so I was a month and a half into school. I was working at the New Balance store, and a gentleman came in that I worked with. He was impressed by me. He gave me his son's number, and his son happened to be Frank,
Ah,
who's my
uh-huh.
partner.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it all happened. If I didn't move to North Carolina, I would have never worked at a New Balance store,
Mm-hmm.
because I was training for baseball. And it got me to the New Balance store, where I ended up finding, my business partner, and my lifelong career, that where I really belong in life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just how the stars connect. You think you want something, um, it's something you think about every day or every week. especially around this time of the year. And you watch the game as a student, but I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be in life.
Hmm.
I really feel like that. So it's all good.
I
Yeah.
love it, man. I love it. I think it's incredible. As you and I have spoken about, so Brennan is a financial representative, as I said before, at Forrest Hills Financial Group. Um, I was a financial advisor. I mean, that second word is kind of, you can put whatever you want there. We call them financial advisors. It wasn't for me. It was not for me, and I got out very, very quickly. Very grateful that all of it happened because, as you said, it led me to exactly where I am right now, hanging out on a Monday afternoon, talking with you. But I definitely think that I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I got out. But I'm glad that you're there because I know someone like you, an upstanding citizen, a good human being, can handle other people's money. I personally, not to say I'm a
Thank
bad
you. Thank you.
person, but it just was not for me. So I guess with that, do you specifically try to work with any athletes at all, or is it just kind of I mean, Forest Hills, for people that don't know, that is Queens, if I'm not mistaken, right? Forest Hills is right in Queens,
So
or
the
it's
the
next to
home office,
Queens.
our home office is in Queens. Forest
Okay.
Hills is Queens, but
Okay.
our like work offices are in the city in Long Island. I work out of
Okay.
the city office, which
Okay.
is by Grand Central, 42nd and Lex.
Very cool. Nice place.
And yeah, so I'm in the city. These days, my business has adapted over the last, 3 to 4 years, naturally.
Hmm.
And these days, predominantly, I work with associate attorneys and big law firms, global law firms, um, and their friends and relatives.
Hmm.
Where I connect to the athletes is with Life After Sports.
Absolutely.
Organically, sometimes a financial conversation can come up. If I can be a resource to someone, I will, but it's not the primary focus.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think everyone kind of knows that when they're there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a way for me to stay involved with my own.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, it's just different. It's just
Yeah.
different doing it. I In the beginning, the way it started, Life After Sports, how did it evolve, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When I started in my career, I think we went over this before. Remind me, I don't want to be redundant, but
You're good.
when I started my career in finance, you have to sit in front of people, whether it's practicing your presentations, you have to get some sort of experience. And so what you do as a young guy is you go to networking events.
Hmm.
And I was walking into rooms with older people, you know, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s in all different industries. Um, and it was very much of I work for, I'm John Smith, I work for ABC Company and I sell this. What do you do? I just wasn't feeling connections. I wasn't making connections. I would go back to my office with 30 index cards, and just kind of chuck them.
Hmm.
Like there wasn't really anyone I would meet, very rarely, here and there, where I would like feel like there was something there to talk about. Um, so I wanted to talk to people that were like me. And the people that are like me are people that are young business professionals, that had a former life in athletics, whether it was at the high school level, the college level, the professional level, or they're just a big sports fan, or they run a foundation for kids that play sports, whatever it may
Hmm.
be. Um, those are the people that are like me, and I know they were out there, and I had to find a way to get them all in a room so I can see what everyone's doing with their lives, and maybe we can help each other.
Hmm.
That's what networking is all about. Um, and that's really how it started. The name came to me. The name's LLC'd and trademarked in the state
Hmm.
of New York, which is really really nice. Um, and it's like I call it a labor of love. I would love to be more and more successful in my business, where I could take a lot of my earnings and put it into my charity.
Hmm.
And this is my charity where I can do a lot of different things with this LLC. Right now, it's about getting people in a room to network and bringing in keynote speakers. But it'll develop just like everything else develops, and I'm not exactly sure what it'll turn into.
Hmm.
But it's my baby, and I care very much about it. I think a lot of people, they come to this event and they kind of take a deep breath because usually people that will show up to this event, we're doing other networking events.
Hmm.
You attract a networking type of person
Exactly.
to these events, and they realized, I think you did too, is it's just a little bit different.
Absolutely.
It's
It's
just a little bit of a different vibe.
It's one of my favorite ones to go to. Last
Thank
year,
you.
you
Thank
had
you.
a bunch. I don't remember exactly how many I was able to get
Yeah.
to, but I met some really incredible people I'm still in contact with today. I agree with you. Networking is how can you help others? It's not how can you help me. It's, who can I introduce you to be able to expand what you're doing. And there's been a few people that I've met that have done that for me. And I truly feel like I've been able to do that for them, which I think is very important. Just some incredible people. And I've asked many of the ones that I've met through your events to come on this show as well. So hopefully,
That's
we can have our
awesome.
own little collective, and we'll call it a series, the Life After Sports series. But
Hey,
no,
that's amazing.
I
That's
love it, dude.
amazing.
No, there's
Yeah.
just so many people that I've been able to meet. And that's where really why I wanted to have you on. I wanted I wanted to hear the passion in your voice. I wanted to hear you talk about this incredible thing. Obviously, I'm glad we got to talk baseball because it's my favorite thing on planet Earth. But I really wanted to hear you speak a little bit about the group. I mean, what, especially with networking, that's one thing you brought up. This is not going to be somebody's first networking group, right? I don't think I've met anyone that's been, maybe one or two, and it was an event you had at a college. So there were some
Yes.
college kids that were still there that were, seniors about to graduate. So that's a little different.
Right.
But which is also awesome, getting to hear what they're going on to do and hearing it in their voice. But my favorite part is, the keynote speakers, but also just the conversations and hearing where people have come from. What sport, it's the easiest thing. Oh, so what sport did you play? And that right there can lead into a conversation. You can learn more about someone. It's not, so what do you do, Brennan? Oh, you're a
Right.
financial advisor. Oh, tell me about
Exactly.
that. It's like, no, like, you played baseball. I can talk to you about baseball all day, as we've already seen. And I truly, truly enjoy it. It's so much fun. So what does it mean to you, knowing that, it took a little while, but you have a pretty legitimate group of people that will show up to just about every event that you
Yeah.
throw, because they know they're going to have a good time. That doesn't happen everywhere. And I think, it's very cheap, if I'm not mistaken. I think I just saw on my Venmo that I sent you $5 maybe once or twice. Like, it's very well worth it. You get pizza, you have great conversations. So what does it mean to you, knowing that there are other people now invested in your baby and in your vision and what you're looking for?
It means everything, because I think it's important in life and in business. I would say personally and professionally, to be diversified. And this gives me another layer um, to how I can be creative, how I can give back to the community,
Hmm.
um, make friends, entertain a room. There's just so many layers of it that allow me to stay fresh in my finance world as well.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I appreciate that part the most. Um, the part, that's the hardest, is putting the events together. But the day of the event is like going out for your start. It's the
Yeah.
best day. But between starts can be a little rigorous,
Hmm.
and it can be tough to organize a room of 30, 40, or 50
Hmm.
people. And you start getting in touch with everyone's lives that day, and what's going on, in this accident, and this lawsuit, and this sickness, and this guy, so it's kind of tough, but it makes it all worth it. I get the same gratification at the end of every event. There is a core group, as you mentioned, that show up. They love it. It's part of their yearly networking events. And I'm constantly seeing new people in the room, so I'll keep doing it. People keep telling me to run it. And I get enough feedback from these things. It's to know that they're worth me doing.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that every successful person that I read about or look up to has their own charity or fundraiser.
Hmm.
So mimicking people that you want to be like and you idolize, I see this as my way of giving back to a community. And it's not your typical way of helping underprivileged kids in the boroughs, or working with you know cancer patients. There's so many different charities out there, and fundraisers and
Hmm.
marathons. This is just my connection, is meeting people my age, young professionals, and we seem to all have an overlapping story. It's interesting. The more people I talk to, the more similarities that I see in my life, with other people that went through a similar route
Hmm.
in their sport.
Absolutely.
Um, so it's fascinating. It's all an experiment. It's all new.
To say the least. Yeah, man. No, I again, I truly love it. The people that I've been able to meet. You had a keynote, a gentleman, um, Sean, if I'm not mistaken. He was a baseball
Yeah,
player.
Sean,
He was going to go to school, got into a car accident, and
good guy.
everything
Yeah.
went haywire. Amazing guy. I truly enjoyed the conversation I had with him, but his story too. And I think well, first off, maybe we shouldn't.
Shout out to Sean David Luke.
Thank you,
Shout out.
Sean. Appreciate it. I've had a couple conversations. Great dude. But no, maybe we shouldn't tell you the day that they're happening. I think that with your pitching career, it was probably better when you kind of just happened upon it. Maybe we should, have Frank just be like, "Oh, Brennan, we're having an event tonight. I made sure your calendar was clear." You'd probably do better that way. I don't know. Make your life a little easier. But no, I think just seeing how you've been able to affect other people's lives as well, I think is really cool. Just talking to some of the people in the group and understanding what it means to them to be able to meet people that kind of similar-ish trajectory where, hey, I really wanted to play professional sports, or hey, I played every
Mhm.
day from the age of 10 to 22, and then I got out of college and now I play recreationally. But you miss that. I mean, if you do something that many hours a day for that many years in a row, and then all of a sudden it's gone, it's a huge life change. So I think it's great. I mean, it's not quite a therapy group, but there's definitely a lot of um, appreciation between a lot of the members to understand, like, hey, we're all in this together. Like, you
Right.
need help, just call me. Legitimately, I've been through it, or I'm going through it. We can help each other, which I think is awesome. I'm not quite there, because I think I played baseball up until I was, I don't know, junior year of high school, so it wasn't anything crazy. But I like to see that in groups and communities, and really feel that it's not just, hey, we're all in a room together, what do you do, who can you introduce me to so I can make money. It's a group of people that played sports and are now having incredible conversations. And oh, by the way, we're also all professionals in something else, and we're all doing other things. Hey, if we can help each other, that's great too. At least that's how I view it. I don't know if you've
No,
heard
that's
that.
I view it the same way.
Mhm.
My opinion's as good as your opinion because we're at the same events.
Great point.
um, I really want to make a point to keep it loose,
Hmm.
keep it casual, and two different things. Some events will be at a our regular scene or regular bar, but I
Hmm.
plan on doing other things this year as well that are engaging, like bowling.
Cool.
There's different things in the city like that.
Hmm.
Maybe go to a sporting event where I think that if people are engaging and talking about something other than themselves, whether that they can relate to, whether they're facing each other in a competition of some
Hmm.
sort or looking at the same event. I think that's the real way to create connections, um, and really connections go a long way in life. I have a mentor in my finance world in my business, and he said to me, "Numbers get plaques, relationships create a business."
Hmm.
So the relationships are far more important than any salary or numbers that people want to talk about
Hmm.
initially, because that's how they're trained to network. It's
Yeah,
just it's reprogramming people's minds to network differently than what's advertised out there. So
absolutely.
that's just building on what you said. That's kind of what I see it.
I love it, man. I love it. And I know earlier you said you don't really know what the group is going to look like. I mean, this year you have an idea, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But,
Mhm.
do you have, maybe let's call it pie in the sky? Like, if it could look like something, what would you want it to look like?
Um, it's a really good question. Yeah,
And you got
it's
to
a
get
it's
going soon. So this is perfect time to ask this question.
a, you saw that.
I might have. Nobody else
it's
did, though. You're good.
it's a really good question. It's a tough question. I think what inhibits people from fulfilling things quicker than they may want is financially.
Hmm.
So everything I've been able to do in this group has come out of pocket or was raised. Um, if I can find a way to financially run different things, I would like to create almost like a gala
Hmm.
where I'm doing it in like a room that you can picture where maybe a wedding
Hmm.
or a ceremony would be at, where it's like more fancy. and there's catering and food, and
I don't know.
music.
I like the pizza that you usually get. It's usually pretty solid.
I would think I think I would lean. It's in my head, but I think I would lean towards something a little more upscale,
Hmm.
and I would attract different people. Um, it would be even more diverse of a crowd, I think, if I did that. And the purpose of it would be to raise money for scholarship, and the scholarship would be for someone that had had a respectable career academically and athletically in undergrad and didn't get drafted and is going on to graduate school and can get rewarded for that,
Hmm.
which was my life.
Yeah.
But in my life, going back, created $100,000 of student loan debt,
Oh.
which is not bad because I invested in myself to get an
Hmm.
MBA. But um, there are people that can fit a category that would deserve a life after sports scholarship,
Hmm.
where they played competitively in college and did everything they were supposed to do, 4.0 students, academic and athletic rewards, and they didn't get signed, they didn't get on to the next level, and they want to continue their education. There's no scholarship out there that exists for that. And graduate school doesn't give out scholarships. I got
Hmm.
the max scholarship and it was $5,000.
Mm.
That's the most.
Hmm.
I was a 4.0 student and they were giving me $5,000 for a $45,000 school.
All
Um,
right.
so that's my dream.
Yeah, I love it.
Um, it would be to do that. It would be to raise big money and reward one person in the country each year.
Hmm. I love it. Well, hopefully more. Let's just raise even more money, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what
No,
it'll come
no, I
down
know, I
to.
know.
You got to
No,
start somewhere.
exactly. No, I'm all for it, man. I love it. Brennan, thank you so much, Brennan Forster. This was absolutely fantastic. Glad we got to have this conversation. We've had most of it before, but I like that we chunked it and a little extra baseball talk this time too.
Yeah, Mike. Thanks for having me. It was fun.